I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Aloha!
Hey.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Great.
Good.
Good.
Good. It's great to see everybody. Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the interview room. We're grateful that you're here on a Sunday night, and we hope that you have a good time with us. We've got our panel back here this evening. I want to give a couple of shout outs to folks coming in here. Thank you to all of our mods. We love you guys. You're the best. We're thankful that you take your time out to help, all of us guys like, me and the other, channels out there, Mike and all the other guys. We're grateful for you very much. So some shout outs, guys. We've got Scotland, Canada, South Africa, North Carolina. Good evening. Where else do we have folks coming in? What country are you with? Give us a little shout out there in the my flock. How are you? Thank you so much. Appreciate that. It's good to see you. You're probably in San Diego. I kind of know that one. A couple of house cleaning items. So if you haven't had an opportunity to subscribe yet, please push that subscribe button and share it with your friends. I'm grateful for that, and it helps the channel grow. I'm hoping to hit 10,000, shortly. So we're getting close. Also, memberships, if you have the opportunity, that'll be great too. Shout out to Airstream of DFW. We're that close, guys and gals. My Airstream is almost ready. So it'll be perfect. It's going to be perfect. And I've got some real treats coming for you. So who do we have here tonight? Well, I think I call these guys the dream team. We've got Greg Cooper, my very dear friend, who I've known many, many years. Greg, welcome this evening, my friend. Good to see you again.
Thanks, buddy. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. So Greg is humble. So I'm gonna just kind of set him up here for a moment. But he's with the FBI, ran as a supervisor in the behavioral science unit. And Greg, tell everybody about your career, if you would. And he's the executive director for the Cold Case Foundation.
Okay, so what do I have, about 30 minutes for this?
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, thank you.
Well, I don't want to bore everybody, so let me just say about 40 years of, a little over 40 years of law enforcement experience. I've been a police chief a couple times, and I would say probably the most dramatic experience I've had was my opportunity to serve in the FBI as a criminal profiler, VICAP, or the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program Manager, as well as ultimately the acting unit chief for the Behavioral Science Unit, what is now called the Behavioral Science Unit. Back in that day, it was called the Investigative Support Unit, which housed 3 different programs. The Criminal Profiling Unit, VICAP, or the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, and then also the Arson Bombing Investigative Services. So I did that for about 5 years back at the FBI Academy, and also taught at the National Academy for about 3 years while I was back there. So I've had a wonderful career, no regrets. I would encourage anybody who wants to pursue law enforcement at whatever level to do so. And just grateful to be here with you. Hopefully have something to add to your show tonight.
Yeah, and I told you he was humble. He's also co-authored, some work, a lot of work with John Douglas and Wrestler and a variety of other people at the BAU Coop. It's so great to have you here. I have just cherished our friendship for so many years. I'm very grateful for that. And the Brady Bunch guy below me is Mr. Dean Jackson, the Assistant Executive Director for Cold Case. Dean, introduce yourself to our audience here.
Well, it's great to be with you tonight, Chris. We always enjoy every opportunity we have to hang out. And I started my law enforcement career back as a deputy coroner years and years ago, and then have been involved with victims and supporting them throughout my career. For the last 7 years, I've had the privilege of being the Deputy Executive Director for the Cold Case Foundation. And the highlight of that is I hang out with some of the most amazing people. And I feel like every day is a classroom for me. I get to learn and glean from their years of experience. And so it's just a privilege to be here and be a part of what we're doing. And people want to see our resumes. They're all out there. We've got a great team. And so they're welcome to look at our website and see who all's hanging out with us.
Yeah, that I appreciate that. And there's some information coming with everybody right now. If you get a chance, get over there to their, you guys have a podcast series, it's like $2 and like $2.99, but you not only get education, they get, podcasts, you guys get videos, and you're actually training the average person if they become a member, right? I mean, on some of the principles. Yeah,
we've actually got an academy that we're starting to roll out.
It's awesome.
And so, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, so the best for last here, outside of these two scoundrels that we just introduced here, is Mr. Steve Johnson. Guys, you're in for a real treat. Steve is the real deal. He's like one of the world renowned, forensic speech analyst and statement analyst. This guy trains law enforcement all around the world. So if your law enforcement agency is, learning about, statement analysis, they may have gone to Steve's class. So Steve, tell everybody, who you are and your career path. And we're grateful to have you here again tonight.
Yeah,
good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to hang out with scoundrels of your caliber. So very, very fortunate. I got into law enforcement back in 1989, and I got to say, it was the best career path I could have chosen. It was just, I felt like I fit perfectly in that, in that group. So I had a great career. I was a detective for probably 23 of the years that I was there. Worked for a great agency in Mesa, Arizona, really large agency. Shout out to them. And I worked a number of things, areas within that agency. Probably got my best training as I was on an elite call out team that responded to all the major incidents within our city. We were very busy. And my forte was interview and interrogation. That's kind of what I started teaching. And what I'm doing now is you can get a really great profile from what people say. And so we're profiling through the language, and it's just a phenomenal tool, and it's making a huge difference everywhere. I get emails from all over the place telling me, hey, your training was priceless. We solved a hate crime using what you taught us, and we solved this homicide or this sex assault or whatever it was. And so it's just phenomenal to be able to do something like that. And last year I met Dean at one of the trainings, and he introduced me to Greg. And so I'm grateful to be working with the Cold Case Foundation. That's exciting. And Chris, shows like yours are just fantastic. I watched a few of your shows before I knew who you were, and I thought, wow, this guy's really sharp. So I'm thrilled and honored to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're kind, my friend, and we're honored to have you here. We've got a great community. We've got these folks. I tell people all the time that I think every one of us know, crimes are solved by citizens. We just take that information in, and then, we kind of fit those pieces of the puzzle together. And I think, assembling a group like this on a good, Sunday night where it's probably cold outside, we're not competing with the Super Bowl this time. We went up against the Super Bowl, yay.
Oh.
Okay.
How did we fare?
We did good. So that said, okay, so here's the lineup, guys. Here's what I'm thinking. So we'll kind of do a deep dive into the West case, right? And then from there, I got a call today from family members in Maya Millette's case in San Diego, and me, doing my career in San Diego, that's close to my heart. So we've got to, we're going to kind of do a cursory run on that one today too. And then from there, Steve, if you wouldn't mind driving again, we'll do a stop start with the press conference, and then we're going to listen to a statement that in the Millete case, where Larry makes some statements to the news, KGTV in San Diego down there, Channel 10. Good jobs. And then let's break things down, and we'll have some Q&A interaction with our great family over here, our community, Miss Sophie, Robin, Sandy Lee, Charleston, Linda, Mo Karchaks. I love these names. 12-step woman. I absolutely love these names. And thank you for the super sticker. We're grateful for your donation. Okay, that said, so Dylan in the back room, another shout out to our sweethearts. Happy Valentine's Day. My sweetheart is in the back room, and I know you guys, your wives are going, you really have to do that thing with that guy. Yeah, I know you have really lowered yourself. Let me tell you. Okay, so let's get into it. So Dylan, let's put the PowerPoint up real fast and walk people through what we're going to do here tonight. So the first case we're going to cover is Orrin and Orson West. Now, we're not going to dive into the particulars of the case, but here's a brief timeline. I think we all know it. December 21st, both of these little boys, 4 and 3, they're reported missing by their adoptive parents, Trezell and Jacqueline West in California City in Kern County, which is just outside of Bakersfield. The parents said the boys vanished from the backyard and are possibly roaming in the California desert. Okay. Next slide. There's a reward fund that has expanded up to $120,000. The authorities have received over 2,000 tips, and no persons and or suspects of interest have been named, or persons of interest have been named. However, they have done multiple searches and search warrants at the family's home, including dogs. Those guys out there have a lot of resources that they threw into this very quickly. The FBI, Bakersfield PD, the California City Police Department, that chief up there, Chief Walker, this isn't his first rodeo. I think he did 20-something years with LAPD. He was a sergeant up there. So he took over this agency. So he's got it dialed in, and he knows what he's doing. There's a tip line set up for 760-373-8606. You can call also an anonymous line of 661-322-4040. Okay, so next slide. So the next case we're going to get into is Maya, and we're going to call her May. Next. This one is still ongoing. Chula Vista Police Department down by the border is working this case. And I also need to remind you the reward for the West case is up to, I think, about $122,000. Maya was last seen by her husband reportedly on January 7th at around 5 p.m. at their home in Chula Vista, California, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's south of San Diego, right near the border. This was 2 days before the family had planned to travel to Big Bear for her daughter's birthday party. Maya has 3 children, ages 11, 9, and 4. And on June 10th at 1 a.m., police received a missing persons report that came from their home. Police learned that Maya had vanished a few days earlier, and a search began. Next slide, please. So they did multiple search warrants on the 23rd. They served a search warrant. They were looking for evidence and clues. The husband also gave an interview to the news agency in San Diego, Channel 10, and we're going to look into that interview here in a little bit. And her family has been just amazingly and diligently searching every possible nook and cranny in the San Diego area and the outlining areas as well, including Glamis and the deserts and stuff. And I've had conversations with her family. They are really great people, just amazing people. Maya is another amazing human being. And so we thought it was important enough tonight. Well, I've got this panel here assembled, at least to kind of take a look at what some of the statements are saying here. So let's start off with the West case. And Dylan, let's go ahead and put that up. And Steve, if you wouldn't mind, if you would kind of drive this the way you feel comfortable. This is kind of your neighborhood here, and we'll go from there. Does that sound like a plan, brother?
Sounds good. Let's go.
Okay.
We just want to thank everyone in the community for all the support we've seen. We've felt so helpless, and seeing everybody out here really looking and helping out really means a lot.
Let's stop right there.
What do you
Okay.
got?
Yeah. So, here's the thing. You have to look at the context. There's kind of a cause and effect thing going on here with human nature. And so, the context here is that these parents are under scrutiny, and toddlers have been missing, which is very, very alarming. And, the biological parents have reached out and have accused this couple, the West, of foul play. I believe that was just, the morning of this press conference. And so with all that being said, now we want to know she was the first to speak, and what is her priority? Well, her first priority was to thank the community. And what she's doing is she's garnering support from the community. And it makes me wonder, why would you need to garner support from the community? And keep in mind, thanking the community for not finding her kids. They haven't found the kids. And, I don't expect that. I expect the first thing to be concerned over these toddlers. We're crying out loud. We're not talking about adults. We're talking about 2 little kids that cannot fend for themselves. So that's the number one thing that I noticed there. The second is she's expressing what they felt, that they felt helpless, and it's an emotion coming out, but it's emotion for themselves and not for the toddlers, which I really want to see. Now, because I'm not here, I know it just started, but the context of this is that, toddlers are missing, and I expect them to dive into what the toddlers are feeling and experiencing, and they're in the cold, and what they, hope they're being taken care of, and the list goes on and on and on. But the first thing they do is they want to garner support from the community, and they're expressing feelings of their own emotion at how they felt so helpless. And Chris, it's alarming to me. I'm now on alert that maybe those feelings didn't really exist. Like I said, this is a cause and effect. Whatever happened in the past, they will recall it, experiential memory, their thoughts, and it will transcend now. And as they recall that to their language, and I'm not hearing that right away in their language. And so I'm on alert for neglect, that because it didn't exist. It might not have existed, and that's why I'm not hearing it. I'm not going to make a determination on that, but I'm going to certainly, now I'm high alert, and I'm going to see if it comes into the language later on, and I hope it does. But I'm on the alert for neglect, and so it's a cause and effect. One of the points that I have in this particular opening that she gave, she said, and seeing everybody out here really looking and helping out really means a lot. That word "really" is a comparison word. Really looking, and so what are they comparing it to? It makes me wonder now if they really weren't looking beforehand. I'm not making a determination. I'm just saying it's in her language, and so now I'm going to see if that language changes. But she's given me some things to be on high alert for.
Interesting.
Steve,
That's a fascinating. Go ahead, Dean.
So, Steve, I have a question for you. Would that, at least at a minimum, the absence of anything related to the kids be maybe possibly at least consistent with at least neglect?
Yes, and that's exactly, at least neglect is what we're on alert for. Definitely.
Okay. Coop, Dovetail, what do you think?
Yeah, I concur certainly with everything Steve has said. Our backgrounds are a little bit different. Steve is an expert in this area. I've been trained in it as a profiler and many years ago, but have used it often throughout my career. And it's interesting as I listen to Steve to see how similar our observations are. And let me just hit a few of them, highlight a couple things here. The initial observation before they even get started here, which for me as a law enforcement person attracts concern immediately, and that is that they're doing this conference on their own. There's no collaboration with law enforcement. There's no organized effort to put a particular message out there to the community. This is a very personal message, which Steve has already addressed. But they're on their own. And again, consequently, similar to what we talked about in prior shows, in as much as they are doing this on their own, they're responsible for everything that they say. And they're accountable for it. So only they can address it once the questions arrive. So they're on their own. There's no law enforcement participation. Now we know that because of COVID, it's common that everybody's wearing masks. And so there's a good health reason for it. At the same time, I'm just going to make an observation. It's awfully convenient, very convenient, that they're able to wear these masks. And outside of the practical aspects of it, it's not very practical in this setting because it doesn't allow them to be human and humanized. It doesn't allow them to express and show an expression, facially expression, or express their sentiments, their emotions. In fact, it allows them to hide behind that mask. And it gives them a sense of protection. It's a protective mask, all right, not only from COVID, but it's also protective from inadvertently revealing certain expressions of sentiment and emotion, or the lack thereof. And as Steve has mentioned, the primary concern here isn't even for the children at this point. Their statement was, and I thought the preceding question was an excellent question asked by the interviewer when he says, what is the mother's priority? Well, here's the perfect opportunity for a mother, that motherly instinct, if you will, or at least whether it's adoptive or not, whether you have an adoptive mother or not, we're looking for some emotion, some level of emotional attachment with those children. And there's no expression there whatsoever. In fact, they never even refer to the boys in this first statement. They don't refer to them by name. And so these are red flags, I think, that pop up immediately.
Okay, perfect. Steve, where do we go from here?
let's go to, she's asked, or the interviewer asked a question, and then mom says a couple little words, and so just before dad starts speaking, let's stop right there because it's just a small little point right there. Ask the question, let her mom speak.
So tell us what happened the night the kids went missing.
Okay. From our yard.
Okay, perfect. The interviewer asked a very specific question. It's very pertinent. Tell us what happened the night the kids went missing. Now, I'm just going to armchair quarterback the question. I wish it wasn't so pointed. I wish it was left more open. Just tell us what happened, because that we might get a lot more information out of them, but we still get good information nevertheless. It's interesting. She said to the question, what happened the night the kids went missing? She specified from our yard. And it creates a question in my mind. Why is she so specific about from our yard? Out of all the things she could say, I mean, think about the things that she could say and that she didn't say. And so she says from our yard. To me, she is focusing on the yard. And so now it's kind of setting the stage for me. I'm anxious to hear what dad has to say, Trezell, the adoptive dad. And I think it's going to shed a lot of light. And oftentimes what happens is what we're seeing in the beginning of the statement will go full circle, go clear to the end. And the end result will help answer what we're seeing in the beginning of the statement. So I might come back to what she said from our yard. I'm curious now why she said that. I think to me, it's kind of setting a stage.
Okay. Coop, do we want to keep moving here?
Yeah, let me just say that you'll notice throughout this whole interview process and their response that there's a lot of disjointed statements that they make because it's not very well thought out, frankly, and they're not very well prepared for it. But there's a lot of disjointed statements, and I think this is one. But it becomes significant because it's on her mind sufficiently that she makes a statement about it in reference to it.
Okay. Okay, Steve, where do we keep moving?
Yeah, let's keep moving. Let's hear Dad. He'll talk about throwing wood inside the house, and we'll stop it right there.
It was cold. I was going to make a fire. There's a lot of wood in this area right here next to our house. I opened up the back gate. I'm throwing wood, bringing it inside the house.
Stop.
My wife's inside.
Let's stop. Okay. This is Dad's opening. And Chris, is a lousy situation, but I kind of get excited when I hear so much information coming out of their brains. It's just like their brain cannot contain it. He doesn't want to reveal it. I think that mask, I think he wants that on. He doesn't want to give away a lot of information, but he doesn't want to reveal his facial expressions, but his words are very revealing. And so, so what he does is he starts out with, it was cold. He doesn't start out with telling us what he did. He begins with the state of the weather, and it was cold. And I think, okay, that typically is when they make a statement like that, it's typically to set the stage for something. And so we know that it was cold enough for a fire. Right there, so I'm thinking, all right, two little toddlers out. It's going to be very, very cold for them. So it's cold enough to make a fire. I know that. And because he did not start out by saying I and whatever he did, I know that this is needed as foundation for something else. So I'm questioning, what is the foundation for? And so the next thing is he says, I was going to make a fire. He didn't say he made a fire. This is his intention. And again, this is more foundation for something, for whatever's coming. So it was cold. I was going to make a fire. He's laying foundation. And then he says, there's a lot of wood in this area right here next to our house. And so it's more foundation, more explanation. And now here we have it. He says, I opened up the back gate. that out of that whole sentence that he gave us, that part of it is I can rely on. I know that he did open up that back gate. He's psychologically in it. It's strong. There's commitment there. I opened up the back gate. I believe you did. And now I know that all that foundation, it was cold. I was going to make a fire. If you don't believe that, there's lots of wood in this area right here, right next to our house. And it's all foundation for I opened up the back gate. That's very, very sensitive to him, but he's very committed to it. Now,
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
he used past. Let me just finish one more point here. He used past tense. And now look what he does. He says, I'm throwing wood, bringing it inside the house. He slipped from past tense to present tense. It takes away the commitment that he even did that. And so I'm wondering now, why did his brain allow him to not commit to bringing wood in the house or throwing wood? Where was he throwing the wood? Where was he bringing it from? He doesn't say. It's just kind of left hanging out there. I can't rely on that. No one can rely on that. He wants you to interpret that he was bringing wood in the house, but he didn't say it. And if he can't commit to it, there's a reason why. And it tells me that his brain's not allowing him to commit to it. And so there we go. It's something that he wants us to interpret that he did without. So there's no commitment there. And we can't do it. If we commit for him, then we are complicit. If we find that there's deception in here and wrongdoing, we're going to be complicit in that. And we don't want to step into those shoes.
Interesting. Coop, any thoughts, Dean?
Yeah, I agree. He makes 3 past tense references. He makes 3 present tense references. And so he's transitioning back and forth between past tense, present tense. And I think most of the statements, as Steve has said, to the past tense is suggestive of the possibility of factual information, something that did happen at some point. Whether it had anything to do with this particular event, we're not sure. But it reminds me of also what's occurring as he slips from past to present tense. What's the purpose? It becomes confusing. And he doesn't answer the question, what happened the night the kids went missing? He speaks as if he's scripting out of a movie or a story script, similar approach to telling a story to kids, like he's pitching a story. He's explaining what and justifying while he's preparing this scenario of circumstances that lead to the boy's disappearance.
Interesting. Dean, any thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it just, I obviously agree with both Steve and Greg, but I think it also was striking me that you almost feel like this justification that he's trying to justify something, but we're not clear on what it is he's trying to justify. Is he justifying the gate? Is he justifying throwing wood? Is he justifying being out there? Is he justifying all of those different things? And so it really leaves you. And again, we don't talk about the kids. They're missing from the beginning of this. So it really does cause you to pause, I think, and kind of wonder about it.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I think that whole, Dean hit it on the head, is justification. From my point of view, I think because the one piece of that statement that we can count on, I opened up the back gate. That's the only one. That's the only thing we can count on as far as what he did the night the kids went missing so far. I opened up the back gate. It's psychologically strong. And I think that's what all the justification we're seeing is for. He's justifying opening up that back gate. My question is now, why is that gate so important? Why does his brain have to justify it? I mean, we open a gate, so what? We don't have to justify it unless something happened that shouldn't have happened, that he knows shouldn't have happened. Then you have to justify it, and I think that's where it is that opening the back gate.
So I got a question for you, Steve. If that's the case, would it be enough to just justify in his mind he went out let's assume, I mean, obviously everybody's hypotheses, but if the theory is that something else happened to the kids, maybe at another location or whatever, but he was trying to set the scene. He went out and opened the gate because he's trying to justify why he went out and opened it, and it fits because he's creating this narrative. Would that be part of it at all, or?
Yeah, it definitely could be. We don't know if it's that something happened to the kids somewhere else, or they're at the home, or inside the backyard, or inside the house, or the gate was open so someone else could come take them, or someone else did come take them, and he had nothing to do with it, but he feels bad because he left the gate open, and so we're hearing that in his language. Those are all possibilities. Whatever it is, we know that gate opening is a key part of it that has to be justified in his mind.
Okay, let's keep moving. Steve, where are we headed?
She was actually wrapping gifts, so we thought it was a good idea that our youngest to go outside and play with chalk on the back patio.
Just stop right
Not
there.
let them go.
Okay. So he says, my wife's inside. She was actually wrapping gifts. Okay. He did not say my wife was inside. He said my wife's inside, like it's at it's present tense. It's in the moment, and it lacks that past tense commitment that's actually what happened. And that word actually, he uses it, and I'm kind of parroting the word actually. Actually is a comparative word. It means that there's an alternative thought in his mind, that actually wrapping gifts or something else. And so he's comparing that as he speaks to her doing something else. I can't even, none of us should accept the fact that she was wrapping gifts, because he wasn't fully committed to that, using the present tense. And so now here's the thing, that whole thing right there, that whole statement, my wife was inside, she was actually wrapping gifts. And then he says, so we thought it was a good idea that our youngest two, go outside and play with chalk on the back patio. That first little bit, my wife's inside, she was actually wrapping gifts, that is a reason why, it's a justification for them to think that their kids should go outside and play with chalk on the back patio. Notice he hasn't said that they did go outside and play with chalk. He hasn't said that yet. And this idea of them going out and playing with chalk on the back patio is, he feels such, that's very, very sensitive to him. So sensitive that he had to give a reason for that thought, for that action. He had for that to set that up. It's more justification. It's actually a cute need to persuade that why they thought that the kids should go out there. So I'm even more concerned that he had to justify that.
Okay.
And the biggest thing for me is that he did not say that they went outside on that back porch and played with chalk. So even more concerned. I want to see if that enters the language later on, that they were actually there. But I'm concerned more at this point in time, and they just started.
Okay, Coop, any thoughts?
Yeah, you'll notice that there are several nuggets that he throws out, justifiable nuggets of information, where he justifies the action of getting those kids outside, putting them out there on the patio. Although, as he's already told us, it's very cold, and so cold that he wants to start a fire.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, so then why would you put him outside?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. You've just contradicted yourself. And so then he has to go through and justify everything that he does consequently. Just this one statement, and there's a couple more statements here, but it's just within a few more words. There are 5 present tense references, 7 past tense references, 12 transitions from past to present, past to present. Very confusing. And it's as if he's creating it as he goes, but he wants to highlight certain things.
Interesting. Very interesting. those of you who are joining with us, we're grateful that you're here. We have Steve Johnson, Greg Cooper, Dean Jackson. These guys are, experts in the best in the business. And so, Steve, where do we go from here?
Can I ask a question real quick, Steve?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dean. My bad.
I was looking at, is there anything to the my wife?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. It's an ownership thing, I love those pronouns like that, and so that pronoun suggests to me that whatever's going on there, it indicates a close, good relationship with his wife, and so I'm now thinking that whatever did happen, that it was something that whether it was accident or on purpose or whatever it was, they were together in it. Whether they're de facto innocent or de facto guilty, whatever it ends up being, but they were together in that. And because that shows a strong, solid, good relationship at that point in time. So that's a great observation, Dean.
Good point, Dean. Great. Let's keep moving. Steve, you good with that?
Yeah, just this next little sentence where he ends with "keep them close."
On the dirt in the backyard, and keep them close. So it's playing with chalk.
Hold on. He said, "Do not let them go on the dirt in the backyard. Keep them close."
Again, so we thought it was a good idea. They got our youngest to go outside and play with chalk on the back patio. Do not let them go on the dirt in the backyard and keep them close.
Okay, there you go. So this is what we call a passive imperative, meaning we don't know where that came from. Do not let them go on the dirt in the backyard. Keep them close. Was that something that was said by the wife, Jacqueline? Was that something he thought of? We don't know. It's passive. There's no responsibility or identity to who said it or thought it or whatever it was. So there's no commitment to this, none at all, and it's kind of dangling out there with nothing attached to it. And so again, it's there's this lack of commitment, which seems to be a theme with him. No commitment to what he's saying.
Yeah, from my perspective, that reference suggests also that it's kind of a disjointed comment. He's realizing that his explanation of putting them out on the patio is questionable because he's contradicted himself. It's too cold, but not cold enough, evidently, to put them out on the patio, even though he wants to start a fire. And so now he interjects, by the way, oh yeah, we really are responsible parents because we don't let them go out on the dirt in the backyard. We keep them close. It's almost an afterthought, like, wait a second, that didn't sound too good to begin with. So
that's a fascinating
underscore
point. That's an interesting
Greg, what do you think about the introduction there where he also now brings in that there are other kids? Because he says the youngest. So it's to reinforce, I guess, your point. We're good parents. This isn't just our first experience with it. Is that a possibility there? Because he's introducing the fact that there are other kids as well.
Yeah, and that goes throughout his process of thinking here. And notice that he never makes reference to those children's names.
Yeah,
never makes reference to the personal pronoun my. The closest he gets is to our. He says yes, our.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost an after that.
Yeah.
So in a big picture, when they're not possessing, to that point, right? What does that ring inside of you in terms of behaviorally? And we'll start with Coop and then Steve, kind of dovetail into it.
Yeah, to us it suggests a lack of attachment. They've detached emotionally. It's occurred after or during, or they never had the attachment to begin with. There was some other reason and purpose for the relationship.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That is definitely a detachment, and it brings me back to what I saw earlier, and I questioned in Jacqueline's comments. Was that attachment ever there? Is that why I'm not hearing it? Because it was never there. And Greg and Dean, you made great observations with their portrayal of themselves as good parents. You know what? Good parents are too tired to tell the world that they're good parents. We don't do that. And so just the fact that they're portraying themselves as good parents is very alarming. We see that time after time after time in all these in thousands of cases that we've looked at. When a person starts portraying themselves as a good mom, a good dad, a good parents, a good guy, it's usually because in the back of their mind they know I did something that will suggest to everybody. Everybody will know that I'm not the good guy. I'm not the good parent. We're not good parents, but we need to portray ourselves as such. And it's just something subtle. It's not something cognitive that they're thinking, but they feel it, and they have this. They know they need to rehab themselves, and so that's what they're doing. And it's so it makes me wonder: is there some other reason for having these kids that they didn't really have an attachment, but there's some other reason for it? And I'm coming back to the neglect thing again. When I hear that, it's becoming stronger for me now, and I'm on more alert for this neglect.
Yeah, it seems we're focused on presenting a case of good parenting. They're trying to convince the audience here that we're good parents, but not one time have they referred to those children by name, nor have they even referred to them as, look at, they're missing. We're worried. We want them back. We need your help. They're not even trying to enlist the help of the community or the viewers. There's not one reference to the children. It's all about them as partially victims, and them as, oh, by the way, we are good parents, even though we haven't shown it.
Right.
Wouldn't you both say that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would think that if you didn't have the missing kids aspect of it, if you had just gone to interview them because somebody maybe suspected that there was maybe some neglect or something there, wouldn't this language alone just tend to lead you towards the path of we need to do more research because of neglect, just the way that it's being phrased and everything?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. These are amazing points. And thank you, Jojo, Ali, and all you folks who are just coming in. Steve, where do we go from here?
Just the next two sentences that end at, I didn't see him now. Let's end it right there.
I was playing with chalk, and I came to the house. I saw them there. I went in the house. I came back out. I didn't see him.
Okay. All right. It just there's so much here. More passivity. What I mean by that is there's no responsibility and or identity attached to what he's saying. So he says playing with chalk. He didn't say the kids were playing with chalk. That he didn't, like Coop said before, he didn't use their names. He's not specific. He didn't see them. He just says playing with chalk. It leaves it open to interpretation, and we're not going to interpret. If he can't say it, we're not going to say it for him. He says playing with chalk, came in the house. Again, more passivity. He's not committing to it. He came in the house. Where's the pronoun I? He knows how to use it. He's been using it, but here he drops it. And that's psychologically ejecting himself from that statement, from committing that he even came in the house. So no commitment to either one of those things. Now he's psychologically in it when he says, I saw them there. Well, the context is here, playing with chalk, came in the house, I saw them there. It makes me wonder, is he in the house? And if that's where he saw them, maybe that's why I didn't see the commitment prior to this about the kids going outside. I saw this sensitivity, the acute need to explain the justification for why they should be going outside when it's so cold that you need a fire. Why send toddlers out when it's cold? That's asinine. So I'm now on high alert that the kids were actually inside the house. And if something happened to them there at this particular time, that it might have been inside the house, not even outside, which would bring me back to Jacqueline in the beginning when she said from the yard. That's a convincing statement that it was from the yard. She's focused on that. Of course, they're going to focus on wherever they want the public to know, or think that this, whatever happened to the kids happened in the yard. But now I'm on high alert that it was actually in the house if something happened to them. So it doesn't stop there. He says, came in the house, I saw them there, went in the house. Okay, why is he doubling up on the action of going in the house? And notice he didn't say I went in the house again, but now that's twice that without commitment he said came in the house, went in the house, without adding the pronoun I to it, which is psychological. That makes it psychologically strong when you add the pronoun I. He doesn't have that. So I have these two references, and it's out of order. And let me just tell you that, over the last 31 years that I've been interviewing and looking at statements, I can tell you that people that are telling the truth can recite what happened forwards and backwards in chronological order. There is a strong, there's so much that happens when they speak from experiential memory, and they can recite it, they can remember those things very easily. And this is just a short time after the night they're being questioned about. You can remember these things, and he gets them out of order. He goes out of order, and I know you guys have experienced the same thing in your interviews. When they cannot remember those things in the chronological order, there's something wrong. And it's okay to say, oh, you know what? I just remembered, and they go back in time and they tell you what they forgot. That's a good sign. That's a sign that they're telling the truth. But he doesn't do that here. This is different. This is him just getting confused in his chronology and the way that he's remembering and reciting things and rehearsing it back. And so I think it was Coop that said earlier that this kind of sounds like scripted language, and now I'm wondering if it is, because they kind of mess up those scripts. They usually don't get it right. And then he says in that last sentence, he says, I came back out, I didn't see him now. So I know he was in the house. I came back out, I didn't see him now, which he now slips into this present tense. He confuses it with I didn't see him and the word now, which it contradicts each other. It's a past tense mixed with the present tense, and so his mind cannot keep this straight, and that's very common when someone is scripting or they have any type of deception that they want to portray in their mind. It will come out as confusing, and that's exactly what we're seeing here.
Thank you, Derek and Darlene, for your super chat. It seemed like he had earplugs in his ears. That's what Derek says. I appreciate you saying that, and we'll get into that. We've heard different things about chalk being the dog or chalk being chalk, and we'll bounce into that stuff. Coop, you want to unpack some more of what Steve just said, or what are your thoughts on that?
No. The only thing I'd add to that is something we've said before, even previously, but how he ends that statement when he says, I came back out, I didn't see him now. Again, this reference to them, but even less formal to him, I didn't see him now, a slang reference. They're objectified. It's as if they're objects. They're property.
Interesting.
Yeah. So just another observation, but it reiterates others that we've made.
Interesting. Thank you, 12-Step. We're grateful for that. And so let's keep moving. Steve, where are we headed next?
We're going to go to just the next little sentence that ends with Did you see the boys? He's asking his wife, did you see the boys?
I immediately went back in, asked my wife, did you see the boys?
That's good. Okay. I just want to remind you that earlier we saw that there was no commitment in his language that the boys even went outside to play with chalk. So, I mean, that is, I can't tell you what a big deal that is, that he did not actually say that. She never jumped in and said that the boys were outside playing with chalk. It's a big deal. That, with what we just saw, I mean, that neglect aspect you're looking at, to me, it's kind of cemented in. I think at a bare minimum, we have neglect here, if not more. This sentence here, I immediately went back in, asked my wife, did you see the boys? That word immediately is one of those words that we often see when people are trying to convince us of something. It's not needed. It's not, he doesn't need to say, we're talking about toddlers here. Who would think that you didn't immediately try to find these two toddlers that were missing? I know if I was, let's just say I was babysitting. They're not even my boys or my adopted boys. I'm just babysitting. And I see toddlers. I would be out of my mind crazy if I couldn't find those two toddlers and they'd slip even just for a few moments from my view. You bet I'd be running around and everything would be immediate. You wouldn't even need to ask me if I immediately did that. So I've seen this word used in hundreds of statements where people are trying to convince us that they did something right away. It's a timing issue, and when timing comes into play, typically the timing has to be just right in order for it to make sense. And because if the timing's off, then in their mind it's not going to make sense, and so they use this timing, and that's what the word immediately is that a timing thing. Again, we have my wife. That goes back to Dean's point that the relationship is strong with my wife. So whatever's going on here, I have to believe that the wife is in it. And again, this is just he's getting into detail about the conversation between he and his wife. I don't think we need all this detail. Why don't we just get to what happened to the boys and our feelings for our emotion for the boys and what they're experiencing? This is what he's slowing down, getting the job done. Why would you have all this conversation? Just tell us what happened. And so when I hear things like that and they're slowing it way down, it's wordy. And the more wordy a person gets, that means that they're employing more emotion, they're employing more persuasion, and it's not good. It's not what I would expect. I wouldn't hear it from a de facto innocent person. And so if I know now from the language and in my personal opinion that there was neglect, and so that's why he's getting so wordy to employ emotion and make people believe, garner that support from the community, everybody that they're talking to. I need to persuade you that I was a good parent. I did what a good parent does. I asked my wife these things like any good parent would do. This is what she said, and it's all persuasion. And so I'm now very concerned that there was at least a neglect going on at that home.
Okay, Coop, any thoughts?
Well, he does refer to his wife as my wife, which is good. It suggests the attachment there in the relationship, but it's followed by, did you see the boys? Again, detached from those boys. Not, did you see our boys? Did you see my boys? Did you see the children even? Just the boys. And it's a generic reference. There's no personalization there. And to me, it suggests emotional detachment throughout this all these statements.
Dean, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think it came across to me, at least as I was reading it, as more of an acting position rather than just natural. It doesn't have the feel that you would see. I mean, I think when you've interacted with, like we have with so many victims over the years, there's not only is there a cadence, but the areas that both Greg and Steve are pointing to in their verbiage. I almost feel like this statement is trying to convince me. Victims aren't trying to convince you of anything; they're trying to communicate something to you. And this comes across to me as I feel like they're trying to convince me of something.
Interesting.
That's
You know, guys, and for our audience, if you've just joined with us, we've got one heck of a panel here. We've got Greg Cooper here, who is one of the supervisors in the FBI Behavior Science Unit in Quantico. We've got Steve Johnson here, who is one of the forensic, actually one of the international renowned forensic statements, forensic analysis guys who trains law enforcement around the world for this kind of problem. And of course, Dean Jackson, the Assistant Executive Director for Cold Case Foundation. If you've just joined us, we're just kind of getting kicked off here. We're going to get into Millete's statements, couple. We're going to kind of take a drive through that one too. So stay with us. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe, please hit that button down there. So let's unpack the next one, Steve, where we're headed.
All right, let's just start playing his statement. He gives a kind of a lengthy little sentence here. We'll stop it where he says, "Me and my wife."
She said, no, they should be outside playing with chalk. I said, well, I didn't see them, so I came back outside and I started searching my backyard. That's the whole thing. I realized that I left the gate open and I panicked, came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife.
Stop. All right. Again, there's more of this conversation that he has with his wife. He's giving the details of the conversation. Again, that is a persuasion. Just like to Dean's point, it's persuasion. It's that they are good parents, and so I'm going to break it down a little bit more. She said no, they should be outside playing with chalk. I said, there's all these little details which I don't expect. I just want to hear what happened to the boys, and I want to hear a closeness, a ownership of those boys. He said, well, I didn't see him. And that goes back to Coop's point, the it's a slang for them. And it's not as close. I mean, we all do it with, I get it, but in the context of this, and we haven't heard that ownership of those boys, I don't like it. So he says, so I came back outside. What he's saying here is that whole first sentence is a reason why he came back outside. That I don't know if I can express how important that is in his mind. It's an acute need to justify going back outside. She said, no, they should be playing outside with chalk. I said, well, I didn't see them. So I came back outside and I started searching my backyard. There's more ownership to that backyard than there is to those boys. You see that? My backyard. I searched the whole thing. This is what a good guy I am. What a good dad I am. I am very concerned because the people that portray themselves as such really are not. And couple that with more ownership of that backyard than there is to the boys. I don't like to hear that. And for those of you that are listening, I'm not biased about, I want to see the parents, I want to hear in their voice that they are telling me the truth. And that's what I'm really looking for. I'm really looking for them to tell me the truth. And I'm going to hang my hat on every truthful part of that statement I can. But I'm so far, I'm not hearing it, and it's troubling. The thing that when I hear strong psychological commitment in his language, I started searching my backyard. I believe that. I searched the whole thing. I believe that. And then he says, I realized that I left the gate opened and I panicked. So he did leave the gate open. I know that from the statement earlier about him opening the gate. He says, I panicked. That's his own emotion. It's referencing what he's feeling. And again, I'm noting that I'm not hearing anything about what those young toddlers are feeling, only what they're feeling, that they felt helpless, that they panicked, that he panicked. And he came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife. He's connected with his wife here. My question is, and I just ask everybody, just ask yourselves, if you were outside and you're searching your backyard because these toddlers are missing and you realize you left the back gate open, why in the world would you be searching the inside of the house? Why would you be wasting time inside the house? I think that is something in his mind. His mind is going back to whatever occurred with those boys. And I'm going now back to the prior sentences, a few sentences back, where he said, I went inside, I saw them there. He did see them. And that's why I said, I think something happened inside that house. And I think that's why he's focused when he's panicking. And I believe even if they did something wrong, they're going to panic like, what do we do now? Even if it was an accident and they're trying to cover it up, they're going to panic. What do we do now? Where did his mind take him? In the house. And that's what he's that's what he has to justify. The gate opening is another justification. That's to set whatever scenario that he wants set up. Maybe the boys were taking out that gate or something. I don't know, but I'm still going back to something happened inside that house, because this doesn't work. You don't panic that the gate's open and then search the inside of the house. It just doesn't work.
Interesting.
And that statement where it says she said, no, they should be, when he asked her about where the boys were. Again, I mean, they should be. I mean, look, we're their guardians, we're their parents. Don't we know where they are? These are toddlers. Somebody's not monitoring them, if that's in fact what happened. And it goes back to this issue of neglect. She said, no, they should be. Well, it's not a matter of should be. Parents know where their kids are, especially the little ones, if they're taking care of them. And going back to the leaving that gate open, that becomes very significant. Now he's opening up the potential here of another scenario of this is how they disappeared. The gate was open, therefore they must have left on their own. Because they never allude to the fact that there is even a possibility that someone abducted them. And eventually, as we'll see later, he takes full responsibility for that and makes that reference to it. But what they're trying to do here is position themselves throughout this whole discourse, position themselves that they're good parents.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. That is an interesting angle. And I mean, if we take the angle of a dog in the backyard too, I've seen some comments, people saying, well, if the gate was open, then the dog left too. I mean, that's a possibility, right? I mean, that's a good point. So let's keep moving. Steve, where are we at?
Hey, can we ask one more question there?
Yeah, sure, Dean. Sorry.
So I just had a question about, so he says that he said, I started searching my backyard. I searched the whole thing. And then he says, that he came back inside and searched the house. To me
and my wife.
Yeah, me and my wife. But to me, the significance there is he could have just said, I searched my backyard, I searched the house, but he makes a point to say, I searched the whole thing.
I mean, how big is it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was listening to to the chief actually talking about some of the stuff they've done. And he talks about one of the places they looked was, I think it was at the Silver Saddle Ranch or something out there. And the chief says, that they had searched the entire thing. Well, I looked it up. It looks like it's like 130 acres, multiple buildings. I mean, that's the kind of phraseology you would have when you're talking about that large of a place. But here he says, searching my backyard. Why does he add in, I searched the whole thing? But then he doesn't, if that's part of his language style, then why doesn't he throw that back out and say, then I searched the house. We searched the whole thing.
Yeah. And then, by the way, me and my wife,
Yeah.
both of us are concerned.
Yeah. It's the good dad principle at play. Let me portray myself as the good guy. If you don't believe me, I'm a good guy. I searched the whole thing. You don't believe me, I searched my backyard. I searched the whole thing. It's more persuasion.
Yep.
Please believe me that I am a good guy. And with my wife, we searched the house, not the entire house, not the whole house, but we searched the house, me and my wife. And so we're together in this. He does, they want to bury themselves in the crowd, or at least be with somebody else in this type of situation. And that's what he's doing. We're all good.
Yep, so let's keep moving. Dill?
Let's go to hit a bunch of corners.
It's that didn't pan out. I got in the van. I looked down the street, most directions. It was getting dark, getting cold, and I got in the van and I hit a bunch of corners.
Okay. When I heard that, I thought, why didn't he just say, I got in the car and I went and looked for the kids down the street. I mean, he could have shortened this way up, but he didn't. And every word that comes out, there's a reason for it. Like I said, it's a cause and effect. He's remembering something, or justifying, or whatever the story was, and so it enters his brain and comes out through his tongue, and so there's every word is important. He said, once that hadn't panned out, that concerns me. That sounds like a predetermined outcome. Once that hadn't panned out, he could have said that didn't pan out. Well, I don't even like the word pan out. Okay. Yeah. That alone tells me that there's some kind of pre-planning here, but the way that he said it, let's say that let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and say that pan out is one of those words that he uses in this type of context all the time. Why didn't he say that didn't pan out? There's a difference between that and once that hadn't panned out. So tells me it was predestined. He knew that was going to be the outcome of that.
Yeah, and as if he's going through the motions of something that's again scripted. Okay, here's the plan. This should happen. That should happen. This should happen. So we'll go through this process, reenact it throughout that process. And now that that's done, it didn't pan out, hadn't panned out. So now we're going to the next step.
Yeah.
Now we look down, right? And then we look down the street. Well, first he says he got in the van.
Who needs to say that? Yeah. You just say, I looked down.
He takes it out of order.
I drove. People that say I opened the car door, I got in the van. That's wordy, and I see that more often in deceptive statements than any other. And it's just one of those things. You can't drive down the street in the van without getting in the van. It doesn't need to be stated. So why did you say it?
And he states it up front. He says, I got in the van, but then he adds it later after he says, I looked down the street both directions. Well, did you drive or are you looking from the van? It was getting dark and it was getting dark, getting cold, and I got in the van. Now he's restating he got in the van. So he's taking those things out of chronological order.
He is seen by one of the neighbors' cameras getting into the van and driving, and he does do a little cursory and then comes back. But you're right, he does take it completely out of order there. Let's keep moving on the statement here. One of the points. Go, Steve.
He said,
"Go ahead."
It was getting dark and getting cold. Well, Who was
Yeah.
it getting dark and cold for? Is it for Trezell or for the boys, which we haven't heard yet? And
Not-
that is such that is missing. It's so notably missing. It confronts us. It doesn't feel right. Trezell, why are you not expressing this for the boys? And then if you want to another word that's in there, it's maybe this might be part of his language. I don't know, but in the context of this, I don't like it. He says, and I got in the van, yes, and hit a bunch of corners.
Yep.
Why does that word even come out in the context of these little boys? I don't like it. All their language that I'm seeing here is the language of neglect. And that is confrontational to me. When I hear that word hit with that language of neglect, I'm really not liking it.
Next. Dill?
I went down this street. I turned my light on. I searched. I called their names. Talked to a gentleman on the street on the other side over there. He didn't see me. So then I came home and I told my wife, we need to call the cops. It's getting dark and I need help. We got to get going. So I called the cops. Cops came.
Let's
First
hold
thing
up
they
there.
did was tell
Okay. This is more of the good guy portrayal. This is more the little details that tell us what a good guy he was. I want to, on one hand, I want to hear the details of what he did to find the kids. I want to hear that. But what are the details? He gives them to us, and if you break it down, here's what it is. He says he drove, he looked, he called their names, and he talked to one gentleman.
That's it.
That's what was that, Greg?
That's it. That's all he did.
Yeah, that was the extent of him searching for his kids. That's it. I should have said he turned on a light. Okay, you can add that in too. But was that a flashlight? What? I don't know. I mean, these are toddlers, for crying out loud. That looks like that sounds to me like a cursory search. Just like you said earlier, you just go down the street, take a little cursory run down the street, then come back and you go on with things. And you know what he says next kind of confirms what we're seeing there. But he says, the old man, the gentleman down the street didn't see them. So then I came home, which sounds kind of soon to me. I told my wife, you need to call the cops. He told his wife she needed to call the cops. It's getting dark and I need help. We got to get going. So I called the cops and the cops came. Okay, small point, but I think that there was probably a little back and forth between he and his wife. He told her, you need to call the cops. And after this back and forth, he said, I called the cops. And it sounds to me that she's probably saying, I'm not calling them. It sounds to me that they're saying, this is your idea. You call the cops. He ended up calling. And by the way, I would absolutely love to hear that 911 call. I'll bet there's so much information in the 911 call. Those things tend to really provide a ton of information. They're way underutilized. So I bet there's a bunch of stuff in there.
You hear that, Chief Walker? Give him a call.
Yeah. I think, one of the other things that strikes me about this is that, I've been with parents when, a child's missing. What I would expect is that he's driving all over everywhere. They're out searching, call from, we have cell phones. He's got a cell phone that comes out. So why isn't he calling from there? I mean, I remember one case where when the authorities showed up and the child's body was found, they had to go looking for the father to find him to make notification and bring him back. I mean, he was 100% committed to, doing that. So that whole experience of you know, it was almost like I went out, I drove around, and then I'm coming back. And then we're waiting at the house for the law enforcement to show up. I don't know, that whole thing really just is strange.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
interesting.
great point, Dean. Great
Yeah.
point. You're absolutely right. They would be out there. They'd have the phone. We know he had a cell phone, and that's the way it would be. It's absolutely the way it'd be. But that wasn't his perception of the way things panned out or played out. He's giving us the perception of what it was. It's not good. It's not the norm, like what you and I have experienced. And you know, anyone that's been with someone who's got a loved one missing, especially a kid, yeah, you don't come home. You don't care if you eat or sleep or what your own state, your own emotions are. You don't care. It's all about the kid, and you're going to stay out there until they're found. Great point.
Yeah, we these are great points, and so let's keep moving. Let's go a little bit further into the press conference. Because we still got a couple other things that we need to cover tonight, and these are just amazing, obvious observations here. And thank you, everybody is here with us. So, Dill, Steve, where do you want to go next? What's the big one?
Yeah, we can go. We can go to where just after he talks about he wants to go into people's houses. I just want to, he doesn't want to invade people's privacy. Go to that point.
Let's stay in the house so they can get a hold of us. And they had us just sitting there, and we wanted to keep searching, but everybody came out in droves. And I wanted to thank you guys that night, but we couldn't go outside.
The cops told us the best are out here.
The best are out here searching, and we appreciate it. And nobody ever could tell, we could never talk to anybody. And that was the issue.
We just want to thank everybody.
We really want to thank you guys.
Please, if anybody has seen them, please call, let somebody know.
Call the cops, call California the City Police Department. Call them and let them know what you've seen, if you see anything. Our boys, they are going to be rambunctious, okay? They are going to be here in this area. And I really would like to go in the houses, but it's not because I want to invade people's privacy.
Okay, that's good.
There's a lot there, man.
Oh, there is. My goodness. I hate to hear it, but I get excited again about how much actually comes out in the language. So obviously, the first thing is that they're taking this opportunity to again garner support from the community, from the public, and they really, I think they really put a lot of emotion into that. How much they want to thank everyone, and their kids haven't been found, but it's this need to garner this support. So they said the boys went missing when it was dark and cold. They're young, they're normal. That we want to hear concern for the boys. We're still not hearing that. I am concerned about that. Again, that's more language of neglect. The big one for me is our boys. Well, let me back up. There was one other thing. She said if you see anything, I don't remember what exact words, but she says she wants you to call someone. She wants you to call someone. She's not specific. If you've seen them, call someone and tell them what you've seen. But she's not specific about call the cops. And then he says, yeah, call the cops and call them and let them know what you've seen if you see anything. He doubles up on that, and it lends this. We have to question whether he knows that maybe there's nothing to see. Maybe if you haven't, that they're not going to be seen. And it's just a weird little slip in his language, but it's coming out of his brain. And then he says that in the context of that, he says, our boys, they are going to be rambunctious. Okay. He does that. And it is a frustration. That is a frustration. It's a memory of how frustrating it was for those boys to be in the house or whatever it is. He's giving away what his disposition, his mental, emotional, and linguistic disposition towards those boys. It's frustration over those boys that they are so rambunctious. And
he makes reference to that about 3 different times, that term, rambunctious. And I think that I agree with you, Steve. I think it's very significant and a bone of contention, so to speak, with him.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
Was.
Go ahead, Coop. I mean, hey, he's transferring that, right? I mean, he's transferring it. Yeah. Yep.
Well, he's putting some blame on the kids, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's a subtle victim blaming. And when we hear that, it's not, I would say 9 out of 10 cases, when you hear victim blaming, it's not good. It's not going to be a good outcome. And now we look even closer at the person that is blaming the victim. There shouldn't be any of that. It should be all concern. What are they? I hope they're being fed. I hope they're being taken care of, that they're warm, that at least someone took them inside the house, all that kind of stuff. Not how rambunctious they were and frustration over them. That all goes out the window when something bad happens. We don't care about that. They become angelic, when they're missing like this. And
we don't care about their privacy either. I mean, at least from a parent. I mean, law enforcement and legally we may have issues, but as a parent, I don't care about anybody's privacy if my kids are missing in that house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, this is great, guys. This is great. And Sandy Lee, thank you. We really appreciate you, and we're glad you're enjoying this. And shout out to Miss Linda in the house, guys. Linda from It's a Crimes here. So yay, finally. we love it. Okay, let's keep moving for the sake of time. We've got a lot. Keep moving. What do we got?
Let's let the journalist ask her question, and let's hear their first 2.
And then we'll go to Q&A. Are you comfortable with the Q&A after that point, Steve, or do you want to go through more?
Yeah, it's up to you. Anything you want to do. It's good.
No, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. We've got a lot to cover here. So, Dale, let's get to the journalists asking questions, and then Steve, pick it up.
Just want to know if make sure. That's it. Because I don't. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. If you got any questions.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say, this is the first time we're hearing from you guys, and I can't imagine what you guys are going through. I can't even fathom it. For you guys, for people who are thinking that there's some kind of foul play involved. We just spoke to the biological mother. She says she had a conversation with you guys, and that she thinks there's some kind of foul play involved. That she thinks you guys did something.
And that's understandable.
What's your response to that?
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly.
Boy, that's a cannonball. Here comes a cannonball.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about that, I mean,
don't you think that falls under the category of admissions?
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. Why in the world would something like that be understandable to a loving guardian or parent, adoptive or otherwise? No, that shouldn't be understandable unless it is. And the reason it is because from their perspective, they can understand it based upon the relationships that they had with those kids.
Yeah. Why would you accept being accused of foul play if there was no foul play involved?
Yeah.
There is no way to accept that. No way. And you can see me, I'm about coming out of my seat here. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is an admission right there. Just like Coop said, it's
that was
not
like
a confession,
boom.
not a confession, but definitely falls in that admission category.
Admission, yeah, it's an admission, and it should be just the other way around. It should be that they should be coming out of their seats unglued that they are being accused of foul play.
What are you talking about? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, incensed, but they accepted it, and so
I mean, don't remember the days you take that chair and you just sit there and say, "So I just have a question. What was acceptable?"
Yeah.
I'll be right back. So let's keep moving.
exactly.
Let's keep moving. Good point.
Yeah.
Go.
The point. And if we can find our babies, then guess what? That's no. And that's all I want is to find our babies. That's it. And I talked to her this morning, and I really wanted to tell her that I am completely sorry because we were entrusted with her children and us, and they became our children, and we named them, and they are our children, and so we want them back. So please, if y'all could get back on what you guys were doing, we should be able to get a hold of somebody, but they took all of our tech, so they wanted to, I guess, just rule us out, which makes sense. That's part of the investigation. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, let's stop. So yeah, that's a long sentence. It's a more it's just more of what we've talked about. I think that one of the things that stood out to me was when he's talking with the biological mom. As I talked to her this morning, and I really wanted to tell her that I'm completely sorry. Okay, again,
Sorry for what?
exactly. Sorry for what?
They didn't do anything, right?
Exactly. There we go. This is on the heels of him accepting that there was foul play. And so in that context of foul play being accused, he's saying, I'm sorry. Again, he should be just coming unglued and not accepting that he shouldn't be sorry for anything if they didn't do anything. Exactly.
And not only sorry, but completely sorry. I'm completely sorry.
Yeah, boy, that's an interesting word choice.
Very, very good. Good point.
And then we were entrusted with her children. So that's an implied message that somehow he violated that trust.
Yes.
Was it through neglect or was it through some other means? So, well, at least he's introduced the open gate and the fact that they were outside. So at least he's basically admitting to neglect.
Absolutely. And then look at what he says next. You talk about a disconnect.
Yeah.
He says, and it came to us and it became our children. That is so cold and disconnected that I can't even begin to tell you how negative that is in his mind. They aren't even kids. He has dehumanized those toddlers, and it makes me question, what were they? Chris, it might have been you in the beginning. It said, was there some other reason that they had these kids? Maybe it was the money they get from the government or whatever. I don't know, but he dehumanized them right there, and now the neglect cemented in.
Then he says, became our children. We named them. These are things now. They're objects.
We named them, but we never used their names one time in this interview.
And Coop, help the audience understand from the BAU side. Without going obviously, but tell them how important that is. I mean, that is some critical stuff that Steve and has pointed out, and that we kind of the dehumanization. Tell everybody about why that's so critical.
Well, once you've dehumanized somebody, let's take a look at serial offenders, for example. I don't misunderstand the audience. I don't intend or mean for you to understand that I'm suggesting we're looking at a serial offender here.
Yeah, we're not.
I'm just saying if we were to take that as an example, and a serial offender, whether it be anything as extreme as homicide to a sexual assault, typically that's exactly what they've explained to us, that they dehumanize, they objectify the victim, so that they're not human to them anymore. They can't empathize. If they're not human, they can't empathize. They can't feel anything for them. And it makes the ability to proceed with the crime, as heinous as it may be, much more palpable for them, much more acceptable, because it doesn't mean anything. The victim doesn't mean anything or anybody to them. It's just an object. And then in all this verbiage here of it and they and the, never things, it never references their name. There's no emotional attachment. So there's not even a personal relationship here. There was some other motivation for them to even have those children. It had nothing to do with becoming parents for them, in my estimation. So going back to your point, Chris, and imagine all the homicides that you've dealt with over the years and investigated. After talking to the offenders, in most cases, they get to a point where they objectify and dehumanize the individual, and that once you take that personalization out of it, it's much easier to engage in those heinous activities because it doesn't mean anything to them.
These are great points. And Steve, what do you want to unpack any of that, or what are your thoughts? And you want to keep moving? What are your thoughts?
I just want to, just before we move on, I just want to add that Jacqueline is standing right there, and she could interject at any time and put some personalization into it, but she doesn't. And so that, what we heard in his language about my wife, me and my wife, they're united. And she, I hate to see it, but she is just as distant as Trezell is. So it's a very significant point here.
Yeah, Dean, any thoughts? I mean, these are huge red flags,
Another
right?
thing was that, I guess at the very end of that statement that jumped out to me was, then when he's telling them basically if they get back to looking or doing, he makes a point of, that all their tech has been taken. So their phones have been taken. So, he's basically saying there's really not a way to get a hold of us. And here again, just going back experientially to working with families, if a family lost all of their phones and everything, by natural, unnatural, or police came in and took it, I guarantee you somebody's going to loan them a phone. They're going to go get another phone. They're going to have a means within minutes, if they can, for people to get in touch with them. So that jumps out at me at his kind of closing remarks. I don't know if that does anybody else, but.
Yeah, let me just dovetail on that, because that's a really good point, and it correlates with the last part of what he said there, the last 5 words. So that's pretty much it. He said that's pretty much it. That's what he's doing. His brain is signaling, hey, Trezell, you've got a lot more information in your brain, and if you keep talking, you're going to give it away, and you better just shut up. So let's just say that's it. That's pretty much it. Don't ask me any more questions, because I don't want to say anymore, because I think I might be giving too much away here. His brain can sense it, that he's detached, and he's messing up. And so that's very, very typical. Let's say that's pretty much it. Don't ask me any more questions.
Well, it's kind of like, in the movie filming industry, they say, well, that's a wrap.
Yeah.
I'm finished.
Yeah.
I've finished the script. I'm done.
Finish the script. Yeah, exactly.
That's an equivalent. And Becky, thank you for that. And obviously, guys, right? We're not saying what the problem is with the children. We're just saying, listening and breaking this down. If they were trafficked, if they were victims of sex traffic, if they were victims, given away, if they're victims of homicide, if they're victims of neglect, if they walked out of that gate together, okay? What we're saying is, listen to how the environment that they were in when post-incident, these are the statements being presented to the public. And so we're not calling anybody a suspect. We're not putting anybody on trial here. But what we are saying is our experience as a panel. If I had a red flag, it's at the top of the flagpole today. After listening to this one, and that's the way it is, because there are 2 children missing out there. So let's keep moving. Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Dylan?
You talked to the police all last night.
Yes.
What? So you guys willfully gave them your
Everything.
technology,
Yes.
the car.
Yes.
Did they get it? How did they get a search warrant? Did you
I
guys?
Oh, no
I don't see
idea.
why they got one, but they got one. We
Yeah,
would
they
have let them
didn't
take
need one,
anything.
but
We would have let them take everything. We let them come in and search with us. We asked them to come do that.
What did they take?
Just tech. And that's it. Like our phones.
From the house though, did they?
Oh, well, I guess I answer that. Or,
Answer it to us, yeah.
okay. So into the okay, I guess I don't even know.
I see. Yeah, we seriously felt like we needed to be out here. We did. Again, we were told best are out here looking already, just to stay put. They have more questions. There was literally a cop with us the whole time in there.
He had sitting down. We would ask him to go help. They had to sit
Said
down.
nope.
He said, "No, we got the best out there.
So
We
it's
need you
not.
guys here to
And let's
I don't want
stop
you
right
guys-
there for a second, because from an investigator perspective, that's an honest statement, right? I mean, we're going to, 90% of the time, whenever you have a missing kid, you want to assign somebody with the family, and for two reasons. One, to watch them, and that's why we have body camera, footage on some suspects as time goes on. And number two, listen. And you don't ask a lot of questions. You just listen to the conversations that are going on. So I kind of teed that up. Any thoughts on that, Steve or Coop? Dean, anywhere in that, or we want to keep moving? Where
Yeah, I felt that absolutely that was normal procedure, and so that's why, as I listened to that, that's why I didn't stop. It was just because I thought, well, that's normal. That's exactly what I would do. I would want to be there with them at all times, and any communication, I want to hear it. See how they're acting, what the response is. Is there any emotion coming to them? Concern for the kids? Are they tearing up? Is there mucus when they're tearing up? And all those different things come into play here. So yeah, that's absolutely the protocol.
Okay, let's keep moving, Dill.
Thinking we
don't.
didn't try. We actually
We
looked
tried.
before we called
We
the police.
Yes.
And I imagine the mind-boggling part is the search for information. What happened? Where are they?
Yes.
Et cetera, et cetera.
And we're yeah.
And just so we are able to present the information correctly, at what time did you guys notice your kids went missing, and at what time were they reported missing to the police?
It's about I believe I think it was about 4:30 going on 5. It was getting dark, like I said. 5-ish. That's about it. That's when everything played out.
Let's
And
stop.
when you guys called the police,
That's huge.
Okay. Again, there's a couple different things in there. I'll call out the audible. That's when everything played out.
Yep.
That to me sounds like something that was scripted, planned. That's when we set it all in motion. That's when it played out. That's way different than, hey, here's what happened. And speaking the past tense and going through a de facto innocent statement, recalling what occurred, is just this wording, that's when everything played out, is concerning to me. On top of that, the journalist asked, what time did you guys notice the kids were missing? And he said, it's about going back into this present tense. That's to me is more of the scripting. It's concerning to me because he's going back to this place in the script where, okay, you start talking where it says it's about 5 o'clock. You see how that makes sense? It's not past tense experiential memory. Then he realizes, oh, that doesn't sound quite right. And he says, I think it was about 4:30, which again, I believe and I think are not, it was 4:30. Now that's understandable that people aren't quite sure about the time. I get it. but coming on the heels of that scripted language, that now it raises more of a red flag in that context, that little sentence right there. And then add to it, that's when everything played out. I gotta say, I'm laying down the script card on this statement of what he's kind of confirming this is scripted, in my opinion, my professional opinion.
Cool. Any thoughts?
No, I agree completely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's keep moving.
When everything played out, I mean, as Steve said, it played out according to the script, the plan. I mean, isn't that a very simplified summary for a tragic story of two missing boys? That's when everything played out. I mean, that's all you've got to say about that.
Yeah, let's go back to what he said. He goes, and so that's pretty much it. He's like, that's the end of it. Don't ask me more questions. I have more information. I don't want to tell you. If you keep asking questions, I'm going to give too much of it away. And here we go. He was asked another question, and he leaked out more information that he probably would have rather not leaked out.
Yeah.
So he slipped.
So what do you guys think about the fact that, I mean, because this is a few days after this happened, right? Since they've been missing. What I've seen a lot with families is that by this point, they've sat down and they've tried to find everything to lock things down. I mean, they've got it down detailed. This seems far more nebulous still. The dates, the times, everything's, I'm not the dates, but the times are kind of ish and kind of ish. And it seems to me like you would want to hear something like, we've gone over this 30 times and looked at it, and we know at this point we saw them. They're trying to get firm dates because they understand how important that is. That to me is part of what's missing here.
The detail, it's all basic.
I mean, I would think that this period of time after this has happened, that they're going to have very precise detail that they've sit down and tried to do it, because that's what families do. I mean, they're going to go over it 100 times. And I know I saw those kids at this moment, and then it was this, and that had to have taken. They're going to be trying to really give you, and this is at this stage is still ish.
Yeah, and to that point, Dean, that's a great perspective. And to that point, all the detail that Trezell is giving us is detail about their conversation that they had, and there's problems with that conversation. It's not good, but that's all the detail we have. And when he gave detail about searching for the kids, it was 4 little minuscule things that were like superfluous on the fringe of what a person would really do to look. And so that is a great point. It all comes around. It's all folding into itself, and we're seeing confirmation of what we saw earlier in the statement. It's being confirmed by what they're saying now.
I think there's more to the statement also when they say that's about it. It's short, it's brief, and we use that to an extent. But usually, think about it when you do use that statement about it. Well, of course, there's more to it, even within the context of when we're utilizing it. More to it than that, obviously, and they have now stated that's about it. But that's not all of it. But that's about it. That's the only amount of it that I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
Good point.
It's a great point.
We have a question about the body language. Who wants to take it?
Well, they're closed off.
I mean, he's shut down. He's shut down. There's no question about that. Yep.
That's about it.
Thank you, Mary, for that
Yeah,
great question.
Right there. I'm so glad I have this mask on, because
and my arms.
So,
he's protecting himself is what he's doing. He's protecting himself. He's pulled in. So let's go. Let's keep moving. Dill?
Please to report them missing.
After we searched a little bit around here, it was dark, so we definitely got worried.
Would you say it was maybe within an hour, a couple hours?
No, it was within minutes of us getting finished with our search.
Okay.
It was within minutes.
What do you guys want people at home to understand about this situation? For them, even speaking about what you guys are feeling is difficult. What do you want them at home to understand about this whole situation?
We're going through it. It's difficult. I mean, everybody's making their own their own conclusions. They don't know anything. We're not sure like everything. We're not sure. We said what we knew, and if anybody has seen them or anything, please call the police department.
Would you be willing to
That's called
share
that.
pictures you have them?
So again, it's about them. It's not about the kids. And I just can't fathom that, how there can be such an absence of concern for these two toddlers. And it's cold outside. It's cold right there while they're speaking. So what would it be like at night? That absence of concern for the toddlers is absent, but they're going through it. It's difficult. It's all about them. Poor me. Look at us. Never mind the kids. They're just an kid. They're not human. So it's blatant.
And their biggest concern, it seems, their biggest concern is the public perception, not about where the kids are.
Yeah.
They're concerned about what people think of them. They make the statement, I mean, everyone's making their own assumptions, their own conclusions. They don't know anything. Now, that's interesting. That's a statement. They don't know anything. They, who is they? Well, it's everybody outside themselves. It stands to reason that someone knows something about what happened because somebody is responsible for this. But they never address that. They never even imply that there's somebody outside of themselves that has had any other additional contact with those kids that facilitated their disappearance. They never introduced that as another potential theory.
Well, and then look at what they do next. They say, we don't. What you said, Greg, but then their statement was, we don't, almost to say we don't know anything either. But then they immediately go into, we're not sure exactly. Like everything, we're not sure.
Implies that they do.
Don't say we don't know everything. They say we don't, but then they've got to add in all this other stuff because there's a lot more there.
Yeah, and there may be some missing information about it, even for them, that leaves them ignorant as to the final status or of all the facts. Like everything, they say, we're not sure. Well, they may not know everything, and therefore they may not be sure. But they know something, but it is non-committal. It's elusive. It's evasive.
Yeah,
it lacks conviction.
And I wholeheartedly believe or agree with what Greg just said right there. Is the same thought that I had, that there is something additional that they don't know. They knew so much, and then they don't know the final outcome. There's something.
The introduction of a third party.
Right. And that's kind of where I'd be focusing.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's keep moving. Dill. Thank you, Audrey.
I have older pictures. All my newest on my phone.
Okay.
A lot of people are speaking of this as, after the math, past tense. I want to talk about your kids in present tense. What kind of boys are these? Tell us about the boys.
Here we go again.
Very rambunctious.
Yeah, even the reporter caught it.
Yeah.
Even the reporter caught it. Keep moving, Dill. It's okay.
They do love to kind of get rough with each other. They're kids. Of course, they would love to go out, but so during the pandemic, we weren't trying to go, out here. And so
what's that got to do with
inside?
Yeah. So this is unbelievable. The context of the question is key. I mean, this guy is very specific. The reporter is very specific. Hey, everyone's talking about these in the past tense and speaking in the past tense. I want to speak in the present tense. Tell me in the present tense, what kind of boys are these? Tell us about the boys. And so I love what comes out here. Trezell says, very playful, very rambunctious. He didn't say they are very playful, or Orson and you know, use their names, and Orrin are very playful and very rambunctious. Still, there's that disconnect. And he said, and they do love to wrestle. Now, one of the good things here is that he is using present tense, but he was just told to. He was led. So that's a contaminated question, a contaminated response. But he is referring to them in the present tense. But look what happens. He says, they do love to kind of get rough with each other. And mom jumps in and says, they're kids. Of course they're kids. Trezell says, they're kids. Of course, they would love to go out. He was asked to speak about the kids in present tense. And for whatever reason, his brain cannot allow him to continue that on. In just a few seconds' time, he still can't maintain that present tense, that they're alive, they're going to come back, everything's well and everything's good about them. Whatever the case is, he goes into a past tense reference. Of course, they would love to go out, but we would sort of during the pandemic. Look where his mind's going. It's going way back in time. During the pandemic, we wasn't trying to go, out here. And so we stayed inside. That solidifies for me that whatever occurred with those boys has been ongoing through the pandemic. They're not going out. They're inside the house. The boys are rambunctious. They love to play with each other. They love to get rough. Ugh, it's so frustrating that they're rambunctious. He can't maintain this positive linguistic disposition towards those boys. In just a short few seconds, he cannot do it. That you talk about, Chris, you said that red flag is at the top of the flagpole. Well, now, yeah, now we just added more red flags. We're waving multiple red flags here. Whatever was happening to those kids has been building up, ongoing. And I got to say that hopefully it's just neglect, but that neglect has been ongoing and probably from the very beginning, and it's not looking good.
Yeah, it certainly does, right, open up a whole bunch of avenues for an investigation. And that's probably why, the chief is holding so much, close to the chest here, because, you can bet they're going back and they're doing that victimology, right, Coop? They're going back there and they are figuring out what these kids' habits were, shoe size, you name it, they're flushing it out. So there's a lot of direction this thing can still go. And that house is where they started because of the victim continuum. And we all know what that's about here. But so how much more do we have on the press conference?
Thing real quick, Chris, and I was going to
go ahead, Dean.
We don't have, I think we've indicated this. We don't have access to the case. We don't have access to the case file. We're outsiders looking in as well. But I think from everything that we're seeing, at least it appears on the surface. Now, obviously, somebody could bring something up, but I think that law enforcement, all the things they appear to be doing the right things all the way through this. And I bring that up because I think sometimes the public wants to shine a negative light on what law enforcement isn't doing. But, I've listened to some of the interviews with the chief and, looked into at least what you're able to get. And I think they're doing a really great job from the information that we're seeing. But these things take time. I think one of the problems that I see with the general public is, and Greg, when we do presentations, a lot of times talks about the behavioral science unit and, the difference between what people see on television and what is really happening. Number one, we're not all flying all over the country in these jets, and we're not solving things in, 45 minutes. I mean, these things take time and they're digging to do things. And I guess, maybe I'm putting people on the spot, but are you guys seeing things here that make you nervous about even the investigation? Because I'm not seeing something there.
No, I agree completely. I was really impressed with how the chief handled this investigation. And when you think about the fact that there's only 13 people on that police department, and that includes the chief, he has not hesitated to reach outside of his organization
and brought in other agencies. I thought that was tremendous.
No, he's sharp. He knows what he's doing, and I think he's handled the media very well. He's been as forthright as he possibly can,
Yep.
And shared information that wasn't going to violate
So,
confidence or compromise the investigation.
So Jay has a question here, Coop. What are your thoughts of swaying indicative of nervousness and hiding information? And Jay, forgive me, I saw your super chat go past. I just forgot. I'm grateful that it just got popped up again. Thank you so much. So what do you guys think? I mean, there's obvious, barriers to entry there, right? I mean, all of that body language is telling us a lot.
Yeah.
Who wants to take a shot? Mm-hmm.
From my perspective, they're just dealing with that stress and the mental stress, the mental anguish, not about the boys, evidently, because they haven't mentioned anything about the boys here generally. They mention more about this perception or the image they want to portray about themselves as caring parents, and that they did everything they possibly could. That seems to be the primary objective here. But the stress that they're under, which is natural for wherever it's coming from, they've got to relieve that stress somehow, and in as much as that it's a mental and emotional experience, you can't see the stress except through how their body is dealing with it, and that's through the behavioral language. The wrapping up of his arms around himself, it's a caressing, it's a sense of security, and they're trying to dispel that stress physically, and their body does it in many instances. Our bodies generally will attempt to alleviate that stress in ways that we may not even be aware of at the time, through our behavior. Maybe tapping our foot, moving our leg, clicking, using a pin. You've got a pin in your hand. People are going like that. It's a way in which to manifest and relieve oneself of that stress level. And I think what she's referring to there certainly falls in that category.
Yeah. And so one thing I'd like to kind of shift gears for a moment, guys, if we can. So and I want to have a part 2 to where we're at right here. So unless there's something earth shattering, Steve, do you want to tie this together or the end, or would you be okay with maybe we come back? Because I just kind of want to, I promised on the May, situation that we'd kind of just go through that for a couple of minutes, and we can come back to this, in part 2. But I really think it's important with this mom that's missing out there in San Diego that we take a listen to, initial cursory run on the husband's statement to the news.
Yeah.
Are you guys good with that? Are you comfortable with that, you guys?
Sure. Yeah, let's go
Okay.
with this. Because I think that the rest of this Trezell and Jacqueline interview is just basically the biological family now getting involved. They're in the audience, and I, what the best things we had to glean from this, we've already gleaned them, and so I think it's a good stopping point, actually.
Okay, good, Grandma. Why don't they think the backyard more kid friendly? It looks dirty and dangerous. Yeah, that is a great question. It does. It certainly does look challenging. And we totally agree with you. And thank you so much for that donation. So Dylan, let's get over to Larry Milette. So here's the scenario, right? Mom is missing. She goes, she just vanishes. Again, what's really interesting here and is this seems to be something we're seeing a little bit more of. And I think social media, I was thinking about this today, and I'm interested in your perspective, guys, is, remember in the day we would talk about how suspects are learning, right, Coop? I mean, from the BAU side, from your side, how suspects learn, and they're kind of like, just like bricks, right? And this guy learned from that guy, and that guy learned from that guy. I think social media is playing a role here.
No doubt.
Because what we're hearing and what I think you're going to hear here in a couple of minutes, it's almost a playbook of, certain things. And I'm gonna play the whole 10 minutes, and we've broken it down here for everybody. And then we're gonna kind of talk about a couple of things that that come out pretty quickly. We'll circle back with some questions, Q&A. And then I know, Steve, you want to do a deep dive at some point into that process. And this is just kind of a cursory run through. So back room, D-Man, let's set up go ahead and pull it full screen and play away.
When did you first notice that May was missing?
Saturday morning.
Okay. And tell me,
her parents came by.
Mm-hmm. Just tell me, kind of walk me through like the last time you saw her and what was going on.
Thursday night. We got into a kind of an argument. We've been having problems. For about a year. Kind of been up and down and stuff like that. But after that, I gave her space.
So just tell me. So you got into an argument, and then the last time you saw her was actually in the house?
Yes,
okay.
Thursday.
So she didn't take a vehicle?
No.
No one saw her leave?
No, but on Friday, I could still hear her, but I didn't physically see her when I got home. But that's normal too, because we have lots of bedrooms, it's a two-story house, and, we kind of I give her space. So, but that's why every time someone says Thursday, yes, it's physically, or visually see her, but for me, it's Friday night. I can hear her wrestling around, making dinner for herself in another bedroom. I'm sleeping with the kids in another bedroom.
Okay.
So upstairs and she's downstairs, kind of deal, kind of like a roommate thing. It's kind of like giving each other space. Well, sure. I don't need the space. She always wants the space.
Got it. So it was Friday, and then you left or went somewhere, and then came back, and she wasn't there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I left her with my two girls because they do their homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had my son with me. So when I came back, she was still there on Friday. We can hear her downstairs, after I'm done giving the kids baths and feeding them and everything. And on Saturday morning, when her parents came by, her door was locked. I found the keys to the bedroom, and I opened it, and she was already gone. So maybe she went to a morning sunrise hike. Because she didn't go jeeping because that's one of her other hobbies, the Jeep group. And, she would have taken that. So assumed maybe one of her friends picked her up and, they went hiking or wine tasting. She likes to go wine tasting in Temecula. That's her other thing. Or brunch early morning. Yeah. After that, at night, we're, okay, she hasn't come home yet, which is sometimes okay. She'd go out maybe for drinks or something. She usually doesn't drink a lot, but recently she's been, doing that. The latest she would be home 2:30 or 3:30 in the morning. After that, that's kind of out of the ordinary.
Sure.
So my sister-in-law was recommending, hey, maybe we should call the cops now. I was like, well, give her some time. But we initially got to the police report. They're like, hey, you got to check the hospitals first. So this is around 12 o'clock at night. And it's like, okay, they start checking the hospitals. 12:30, they finally filed the police report. And I was like, well, maybe give her some time, because I'd call at 4:30 because, give her some time if it's really, really out of the ordinary. So after that, they started the investigation. Well, 3 cops came. I let them search the house. They looked all the houses, all the cars, and then we just been waiting. And then I got the NCIS called me, and then he was able to search the house and everything. My in-laws have been here the whole time. They start doing the neighbors, the cameras and everything, trying to figure out if when she left, they can see it, but they can't really because it was nighttime kind of deal. We're just basically trying everything and anything, trying to find her.
Well, Larry, just tell me, how worried are you, and what do you think happened? Where do you think she is?
Before I wasn't really worried. I was kind of worried, but I wasn't like totally worried until the birthday. I was thinking, okay, maybe, like she's just blowing off steam, just like, doing what she told me before work. She wants everyone to leave her alone, because before I used to get her family involved. Like, hey, she's not coming home, and then why'd you call my family? I just want everyone to leave me the thing alone. But, I was like, okay, this time I think she stepped up her game. Like she's blocking everyone. But now that, she missed our daughter's birthday, and like with all this pressure with the media and everything, there's something keeping her from contacting us. So my sister-in-law is, I don't really try to think about that stuff because it's like mind-numbing, but I'm trying to stay positive. But, when people are telling me, hey, maybe she got into an accident while she's hiking, and she can't get her phone, like, well, her phone would be right next to her. Like she wears fabletics, so it would be in her pocket. So worst case scenario, I don't know what's keeping her from, contacting anyone, but this pressure should be enough pressure to say, hey, you guys, I'm okay.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure what to think, but I'm still trying to, keep my head up, trying to say, hey, keep positive and say, I'm hoping, like she'd just come home, even though this whole situation is embarrassing. I don't know what to think, but the longer it's going, the more like surreal it gets, because what they say is like the first 48, 72 hours is the most critical. I've seen enough movies and documentaries about this kind of stuff. So like the worst case scenario is basically something's happened like very terrible. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, how worried are you? Do you think there's still a chance that she could voluntarily have left and she just needs time? How worried are you?
That's what I'm hoping for. And this is like really whoa, come on, why did you have to do this, the whole thing? But I'm really worried and shaken. But again, like most of the time it's just numbing, like, surreal kind of deal. I'm just worried about her and, trying to keep things normal with the kids, because I know they don't show it, but, it's really affecting them. So.
When she didn't surface for your daughter's birthday, that was really unlike her.
That was the pinnacle. Yeah, that was like a gut-wrenching feeling. And, you break down a little bit. It's like, well, she would never, not even say, hey, honey, happy birthday, kind of deal. So.
And and your 11-year-old's old enough. Has she asked? Like, are they asking?
Yeah, she's asking, but she's kind of like me, keep herself in the shell. Don't really want to, open up.
How many times has she left before, and how long has it been?
In the past, like before, she would just like stay at the park or park somewhere or go like in the parking lot. And that's years back. Even this past year, she just stay away. This year, she'd like go out, drinking with friends or stay at a friend's house, and try to sleep it off. Couple months, she's been, like wanting her space, so she'll go out with family to places, and she'll just go out for days and stuff like that. But at least I know where she's at.
So how when she's gone, right? So, but when she has left, how long? What is the longest she's been gone for?
Like maybe a day for like till 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, kind of deal. So
never more than a day or two.
Oh yeah, never more than a day.
Okay, never more than a day, and then you always kind of knew where she was at. Okay.
Not more than a day. Okay. Basically, or the next day. Again, I always tell her we have 3 kids. You can't be doing this kind of stuff, and she would never be that irresponsible not to say, hey, I'm okay.
Was there anybody that wanted to hurt her? Was there any other guy? I hate to ask, but
like I don't know. I told the police, she really likes hiking.
Okay.
Wine tasting, so Temecula and stuff like that. But I don't know what else to think. Like, who would kidnap her? Or
would she go hiking by herself?
She has, yes, but that's the ones like close to the house. We have a hiking trail in San Miguel Park, or San Miguel right here. That's the only time she would go by herself. And yes, she has before in the beginning, but she would take her car. So she would go to the one, I don't know, the Santee one or the one in the Mesa. I forgot. There's a mountain there. Yeah. But, yes, those ones she would go by. So, but most of the time she would go with hiking mamas, with Shane. And then, she's like one of the leaders. And then everyone else is like whoever shows up to that group.
So she was a
And
pretty
she's
experienced
usually-
hiker.
Not experienced. She was training for this hike that me and her tried when like 10 years ago before we had kids. Down the Colorado River and the Grand Canyon. Anyway, it takes about a day
Yeah.
to go down there. So she's been hiking and hiking. It's kind of a stress release. And she wanted to do this like a 7 hiking trail, like, you know, Twin Sisters, Devil's Peak, or Potato Chip Rock, and all the ones that she keeps mentioning. And I was like, well,
But she would have taken her car, like, or there would have been a friend, or.
Yes, exactly. If she didn't have her car, a friend would have to pick her up.
Okay.
So that's the only reason why I was like, maybe she's wine tasting or hiking with a friend, because she's not jeeping because her car's here.
Right.
You know, she has her own vehicle, and she has a Jeep that specifically goes for Jeep groups.
So what has this been like, Larry, just emotionally for you? I know you said you're kind of just numb and you're trying to take care of 3 children, but I mean, how are you doing emotionally with this? I mean, this is...
Trust me, I've been emotionally, physically, mentally drained. There's no sleep, not eating. You know, just my face looked like it just aged, like, I don't know. But, you know, the main thing is I can't really think straight.
Okay. I'm not even going to ask a question. I'm going to go first run. Coop, first impression.
Lacks a lot of detail there. There's not a lot of emotion. Well, there's no emotion. No sense of attachment. References to everything is referred to in the past. And no details, no specificity. More generalities in the explanations. And it's as if, according to the description, they're living 2 separate lives. And yet, once in a while, he'll come up and makes reference to, well, she may stay out till 2:30, 3:30. So there's some monitoring going on there as to what she's doing outside of what's going on within their relationship. Sounds like they're living 2 separate lives, even living on 2 separate floors. So there's troubles there in the relationship. So we have to look at that. Typically based upon her victimology. We don't have a lot of information about that, but let's say, for example, if she is what we refer to as a low risk victim, the probabilities is that whoever may be responsible for her disappearance is somebody that she knows and is very close to her, unless she engaged in some kind of an activity that took her out of her low risk lifestyle, a set of circumstances or an environment or situation that elevates her risk level. And now you've got a potentially low risk victim that becomes or gets into a situation that elevates her risk level where she doesn't have control over it anymore. But we don't have any reason at this point to believe one or the other. We don't have enough information.
Okay. Dean, what's your 2 cents?
Well, I agree with Greg. I think some of the things that were jumping out at me initially were when he talks about the argument, he says got in kind of an argument. So he's already wanting to somehow, I don't know what that means, but there's something about that jumped out at me. The other thing that jumped out at me is that he talks about how this is embarrassing to him, surreal, worried, shaken. He thinks that something is keeping her from contacting us. Thinking about it's mind numbing. And then he throws in there this whole issue of her drinking. And so we see shaming of the victim, is being thrown out there. And I don't see him really worry. His level of worry for her is concerning, I think, for me.
Yeah.
And then
Chris, let me
go ahead.
add one more thing to follow.
Go ahead, Coop.
On the reference to this argument. He makes it a point to mention that, and that's significant. that's that certainly could fall in the category of what we might refer to as a triggering event. And typically triggering events are preceded by precipitating stressors, which he makes reference to, and that is in their relationship problems.
Yep.
So you've got a formula that exists for unfortunate results.
Yeah, in fact, Greg, I think he said problems for a year. I actually made a note. He said we've had problems for a year, and I made a note there, the stressors, because I mean that's exactly what you see there. And then I don't know. It was interesting. He throws out there about his daughter, and I'd maybe interested to see what Steve thinks about this. But he says the daughter, like me, really don't want to open up, keep things in a shell. For me, I kind of looked at that saying, are you keeping things in a shell? Are you keeping things, not wanting to open up and be honest about everything here?
Steve?
Yeah, definitely. So my overall impression, and then I'll go back to some specifics, but my overall impression is that he is, to Dean's point, he's blaming her as if she's doing this on purpose. And he said, you would think with all the stress and everything from the pressure from the media that she would, I don't remember his exact words, but she would at least say something. It would be enough for her to contact us and whatever that was. And so he's definitely blaming her for all of this. And to that point, he furthers that when he said, he's trying to portray himself as the good guy. Which typically is what we see when we see victim denigration. The person that's denigrating them, they build themselves up to be the good guy, and that's alarming for us. We know that type of person, when we see that, it's like, red flag right there. And he said, well, I always space. She needs her space. Well, I said, well, she needs space. I don't. So again, he's putting the onus of this right upon her shoulders. I want to go back to what Dean and Coop referenced in the beginning of the statement. He was asked about the last time. Let's see, the question exactly was, just tell me, kind of walk me through the last time you saw her and what was going on. So he said, Thursday night. And he could have stopped right there. It was Thursday night, answered the question, but he kept going. Like we got into an argument. So he's minimizing this argument that they got into. It was just kind of an argument. Why even bring that up? This was significant for him.
It's significant, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the last time you saw her and what came to his mind. We got into an argument. It was good enough that I need to minimize it here because I want to know what's going on in his mind that he needs to minimize this. And he continues on. He says, we've been having, like problems for about a year. The question was, tell me about that night, the last time you saw her. And this is what's coming out of his brain. So that whatever happened that night, the last time he saw her, all these problems they've been having for the last year have been building up to that night. Okay? That's what's caused this to come out of his brain. It gets better. It gets more confirming. He says, kind of been like up and down and stuff like that. But after that, I give her space. I'm the good guy. And this is the normal. He's talking in normality. I give her space, not I gave her space that night. I give her space. This goes back to, this tells me this is ongoing over the past year. We get into an argument. I give her space. That's the normal thing. And that's what's coming out of his brain. He's recalling all this, and it's all building up. And so then she says, so just tell me, the reporter says, so just tell me, so you got into an argument, and then the last time you saw her was actually in the house? And Larry said, yes. And then he adds the word briefly. And I wonder,
I knew you would catch that. I knew you would catch that.
Did it go outside somewhere? It was only briefly in the house. And it gets better. So she didn't take a vehicle, and the reporter's really contaminating this. And I wish she would have just asked general questions, but she didn't. But it's okay. Larry says no. Larry says, but on Friday, I could still hear, like, I didn't physically see her when I got home, but that's like normal too, because we know we have lots of bedrooms and 2-story house, and we got kind of, and we got kind of like, well, I give her space, the normal thing. So, but that's why every time someone says Thursday, yes, it's physically, or visually I see her, but for me it's Friday night. I can hear rustling around making dinner. So he brings this word physically into it instead of, and then he corrected and he said visually. But it tells me the brain is amazing. The brain will pick out the words and describe what's going on. He's already described this ongoing problem that has now led up to this argument. The last time he saw her Thursday, and now he's going into a lot of, it's getting really wordy now, and it's a convincing thing to make us believe that Thursday wasn't actually the last time that he saw her. It was it was Friday, and why? We have words like rustling and the other bedroom and that word briefly, and just all these descriptors. You put them all together, and it's kind of painting this picture that it's likely he saw her Thursday, but I really, really need to convince you that it's Friday. Now I take that into context to what he said later on. I just jotted a quick note. He said that he knows it's the first 48 to 72 hours that are so important. He goes, I watch a lot of the shows and the documentaries, so I know that's the case. Well, later on, he talked about the family wanting to call, and he kept saying, no, wait, hold off, don't call. I mean, she might be coming home. Why? He's skipping over that. He's making sure the first 48 to 72 hours has passed before he calls. And those are just my overall impressions as I heard that. I did a few notes. And so, it's alarming.
And
Okay, so
don't you think it's kind of interesting, the 42 to 72 hours? Is that just coincidence? I mean, what are the chances that it's coincidence that he's seen that in TV shows, he's watched it on documentaries, and lo and behold, before the report's ever made, it's been that exact same amount of time.
What do you know?
It makes it difficult to investigate that.
Yeah.
So the thing that jumped out at me, the most significant for me, he didn't use her name one time in that interview. Not one time did he personalize his wife of 21 years. Not a single moment did he say May. May is missing. Not once. That is huge, in my opinion, right?
It is.
And
Definitely.
So here's our homework. Here's our homework, guys. Let's do a deep dive here. I talked to her sister today and her brother-in-law at length. Just beautiful people, wonderful people. He's lawyered up, and he's got the right to. Right? Nobody's saying he's done anything. Okay. Here's her victimology. She loves the desert. She loves cars. She likes adventure. She cuts it loose on the weekends. She's got a federal job. She works for a defense contractor, DOD, and that's why he mentions NCIS comes by also to check. So what he doesn't realize is there's a parallel investigation taking place, because as you guys all know, when NCIS shows up at your front door, that means your wife had access to some things on the federal installation out there, probably 32nd Street in San Diego. The second thing is he has 4 years in the military, in the Navy. He was a corpsman. He was never deployed overseas, yet he projects himself as if he was a combat veteran. I read some of his posts when he was selling one of his Volkswagens, and it was pretty interesting stuff. So what I want to do is circle back with you guys when you get a chance, to kind of, soak this up. And I think, we want to help this family. The police they're doing an incredible job there. Chula Vista, this isn't their first rodeo. They've got a good handle on this down there. I talked to the family about, kind of creating some avenues of conversation and keeping Maya out in front of everybody. And they're doing amazing things. They've been searching. They went to Glamis and all kinds of places. They took her car. The PD took her car, probably, obviously to pull some of the electronics out of that, and that kind of stuff, as we all know, and some other things that we're not going to write, that we probably, none of us will talk about. But it looks like this case is going to go into the right avenue here. But he's lawyered up. So, he did make a couple of statements. And, let's see how it's going to go over the next couple of weeks, see if we can support this family. And, maybe we'll come up with some ideas investigatively, because we've all been here on, maybe throwing some ideas out. And our community over here, folks, I know, It's a Crime with Linda. You guys remember Linda? She's as sharp as they come, man. She'll be interesting. There she goes right there. I wonder what kind of documentaries Larry watched. Well, there you go. And Linda, what would be fun is to work this, kind of collaborate together here on our thought process. Down in Chula Vista, we used to call it, well, I'm not going to say what we used to call it. When I worked Vice, we used to go down there, but I'm not going to say that. I'll get in big trouble and my wife will kill me on Valentine's Day. So I'm not going to go there. Anyway, we certainly do appreciate your initial brush on that. So with that, let's take some questions and from our group, because I promise we'll take some questions. So guys, if you have some questions, let's throw up Maya Millete. Yes. Thank you so much for pointing that out. That's correct. Thank you. And I apologize, Don. I should have said that. You're 100% right. Okay. Stephanie, have they checked Seasons Park? I don't know. I don't have that answer on that one. I don't.
The only thing I've seen, Chris, I did see, we're talking about the boys, right? Or is
no, we're talking about Maya.
Okay.
Selling a Volkswagen. Yes, on Reddit. You can see where he's posted up. He's Corpsman something 9 something. What else we got? No. All right. Let's see here. Let me go back here. Maybe there's some up here. Thank you for your insight. This is a compliment to you guys. Without a body of confession, what will happen? Well, that's a great question. It all depends on what the crime scene, what evidence they got from the crime scene. You don't necessarily always need a body. What does Chris mean with NCIS? It's Naval Criminal Intelligence Service or Investigative Service, NCIS. They work on all the federal facilities out there. What else? She loves the dessert a whole lot. Maybe he put her where she loves more than him in the desert. Oh, I'm sorry, I said the desert. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, right? And Coop, what would drive us towards that from a profiler perspective? What are some of the clues that would drive us there?
In terms of where she might be?
Yeah, suspectology.
Yeah. I think one of the first things that we do in any case, at least that we emphasize to do, is conduct a full investigation of the victim, or the victimology, the study of the victim, to help us get a sense of potential risk level. We first look at their lifestyle, and then we look at 2 different phases. The lifestyle and make a determination as to whether or not they're low, medium, or high risk. And then the secondary is do a risk assessment about what's going on in their lives proximate to the time in which, in this case, she disappears. And leading up to that, we're looking for the pre-offense behavior, the offense, and then post-offense behavior, potentially of any suspects, if there are any.
Okay. And they have three children. Go ahead.
Okay. And so that detail that we look at with the victim, we want to do the same thing about anybody that emerges as a potential individual of interest or suspect. And if we conclude, for example, that she is a low-risk victim, then it's most probable, after looking at hundreds of thousands of cases over 30, almost 40, well, actually over 40 years, not just me individually, I'm talking about as a group of investigators. I think any investigator will tell you the same, that the lower risk of the victim, the higher the probability that victim is demise has come about by somebody that they know, or that there's either an intimate relationship or it could be a casual relationship. So looking at the suspectology, we're looking at the same thing. Who close to her, most likely, is going to be somebody within that contingent level of relationships, intimate to casual. And that's where we begin to focus.
Yeah, Sharon Arce asked, the interview room, has the house been investigated? Yes, they've done a search warrant on the house. Great question. Absolutely. And she would not have left she would not have missed her daughter's birthday. The family was very specific. Yes, question. What does Larry do now for a living? I don't have that piece of the puzzle yet. Maybe somebody knows and they can put it in the chat here. We'll see. That's a great question, though, Sophie. Who watched the kids when she went out? Well, that varied based on answers that I got from the family. It was Larry, and there were in-laws as well. Do you know if she was on any dating sites? I don't, but she could have been. That's obviously a possibility, not disparaging her in any way, shape, or form if she was having relationship problems. And that also could be bad for Larry, because if he found out about him, as Coop said, that could also be a triggering event, which would not be advantageous in his set. What are your thoughts on when the reporter asks if there was a guy involved and he answers, well, she likes to go hiking? Steve, what do you take that one?
Well, I think that it's telling. I think that he's given away some information that he either knows or has the thoughts in his mind that when she goes off on these hikes that she's meeting up with someone. And obviously that, like you said, that could definitely be that triggering point. I call it a point of humiliation. That is that trigger, that point of humiliation, that trigger of humiliation that drives people to do things that they normally wouldn't do. And whether things happen by accident or on purpose, there's typically that humiliation factor involved. And that definitely could be it. I think that was very telling, the way that he answered that. So I heard that as well. And I thought, that might be where he might have some knowledge about another guy, because he really was vague with that. And it seemed to become sensitive to him. And as far as the hiking and the desert goes, I think that would be somewhere to definitely focus on those areas. Obviously, if she liked to go there, she wanted to go there, that would be an easy place to take her, get her to go, whatever the case is, or find her there. And I definitely would focus there.
Yeah, he deleted his Facebook almost as soon as she went missing. He's since deleted his YouTube account, hasn't helped search for her one single time. He's keeping the children from Maya's family, etc. Yeah, not good.
He's going to search.
Thank you, Marissa.
Wagons.
Yeah, not good. Teresa Monroe, have the children been interviewed? I don't know that answer, but knowing we're into a month almost here, if not longer, what are we, January 9th or January 7th? So we're into 7-8 weeks now, almost coming up. And so I'm assuming they've done some forensics interview. Who was the last to speak with her? Sounds like the husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Good question. Anthony, someone said that she's supposed to meet with a divorce lawyer the following Tuesday, but ended up missing on Friday. Yeah, that would be problematic for sure, because if she goes let's see, that would have been the Tuesday, would have been the 12th. So yeah, that would have been a problem.
Another
Definitely.
coincidence.
Could have been a trigger. Yep, we don't know.
You know, one thought I was just having as we're sitting here kind of putting this all together is that, you know, a lot of people who knew her, one of the experiences that I've seen a lot of times on these cases is that if you had everybody in the room that knew her and they all shared their little piece of the puzzle, it would be clear what was going on. The problem is we're oftentimes siloed, and we're siloed in our relationship. And so sometimes the piece I have may seem quite insignificant, but it's the combination. So in general, speaking about trying to understand her, that's one of the reasons why we try, you know, one of the things we do is such an in-depth victimology, but that's also identifying people in the relationship with her. So I think, you know, as people are thinking, especially people who know her and had a relationship with her, whether it be, you know, family, work, any of those things, helping get those small pieces to the table, that's what really can help law enforcement, because they can put all those together and they're looking at it from 30,000 foot and all of a sudden looking down on it, you go, oh, wow, this, and this, now this starts making sense, no matter what the outcome is. So I think people need to really realize that if they're not sure about something, that's the kind of information, you know, get those pieces out there, because we're trying to put together a huge puzzle piece here. And people sometimes have puzzle pieces. I mean, I know Greg and I've had cases where we'll be talking to somebody and find somebody who's hung on to a puzzle piece for 25 years and they didn't even realize it was that much of a puzzle piece, but it was that one little thing that really kind of ties or opens the door to tie a lot of things together. So just a thought.
No, that's a great point, Dean. And you know what's interesting, you know, if we do a comparative analysis in relationship to some of the most high profile cases recently, right?
Yeah.
Look at, you've got Chris Watts, you know, who makes some statements in Colorado. He ends up, you know, being the bad guy. You've got Angela Green's husband, you know, she's just vanished. And, you know, his daughter's 19 years old trying to find her. Okay. She just disappeared off the earth. Okay. And then you have Suzanne Morphew, who in Colorado, you know, she just somehow, you know, evaporates again. Okay. And now this guy, okay, there's a commonality in each one of these though. Okay. And the commonality is they have been controlling the narrative. They get the narrative out there, and that's why guys like Steve and Coop and Dean, all guys like you, it's so critical to catch these statements early on when they do this. Okay, because I have a theory right now, and it's just a thought process. I think they're learning from each other. I think social. Go ahead, Coop.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And they're listening. They're watching other events, criminal events on television, real time, as they occur, and of course, reading TV shows, etc., and to some extent, podcasts. They're listening. Many of them are listening to us right now. We know that in the Morphew case that there was some reviews and watching of some of those true crime shows and podcasts. And we have to assume that these people are intelligent enough that they're going to learn through the lessons of others by others' experience so that they can avoid it themselves. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's what we know, that what goes on in prisons. You know, they go in and they come out with a PhD Well, it's not a PhD in academics. It's a PhD in criminal behavior. So they become better at what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Fuzzy Doxy, I love that name. Do you guys think it's gotten worse since COVID? I think there's a connection. Dean, what do you think? That's an interesting question.
Well, I guess my first question is trying to understand the question. Do we think it's gotten worse in the sense, is that directed at there's been more cases like this since that, or are we saying has it gotten worse? I'm not quite sure exactly what where they're going, but I'll answer it in this context. I do think that from a domestic violence perspective, in some of these cases, I think just at the 30,000 foot level, people have been forced back into environments, close quartered environments in these intimate relationships. And because they've not had as many outside activities to kind of help buffer and create, all the buffers are going away. So people are being forced to really engage with people at a whole new level. And oftentimes in a home where they're kind of feeling locked down. So I think across the country, from what I'm hearing from therapists and psychologists and people that are working, is that there's been an increase, because it goes back to what Greg was talking about earlier, stressors and triggers. I think definitely more time with people who maybe either don't have the skill or the desire to work out problems and find resolution, then more stressors. Now, does that mean that leads to a trigger that, is a trigger to the point of homicide? Maybe not, but there may be other triggers. So there may be cyclical violence also that can be starting to escalate. And that's a whole nother issue that you've got to look at too. And that's part of what we're looking at in victimology.
Interesting. Darcy Ann 60, thank you so much. We appreciate that donation. And also to that comment about Barry watches Linda's channel. He better. He absolutely better. If he's not, he's going to lose. Linda's brilliant. And hit that subscribe button down there, and hit her subscribe button. This is a perfect segue, guys, into a long conversation here, but a fascinating one tonight. And I think we need to do this one next. Are you guys in for that? You up for that?
Sure.
To really go into Maya and kind of dig into this, and I'll get hold of Miss Linda too and see if we can collaborate on some thought process here. And a couple of things. Dylan, let's put across the board here. If you don't know Steve's organizations, please go down to truthtolies.com. Hit that. It's in the bottom down there. Kimberly McVeigh, thank you so much. You're so kind and generous. We're very appreciative of that. If you're in corporate America and you want one of the best guys in the country who trains not only corporate folks but law enforcement, that's your guy, Mr. Johnson, right down there somewhere. There he is. Okay.
Yeah, those classes will knock your socks off. They're really good.
And these two guys here, I can't get this thing. This guy over here, my brother Greg Cooper, Behavior Science Unit. He's the real deal. He was there. He ran it. Real profiler. He's the guy. And of course, Dean down there. These guys are the Cold Case Foundation. They are helping hundreds and hundreds of families around the United States. And if you can find it in your heart, go over to their website, hit on their Cold Case Live, listen to their podcasts. They've got some fascinating podcasts. You will learn a ton over there. And it's $2.99 a month. Go over there, sign up, get some of their educational stuff. I promise you will not be disappointed. So with that, guys, I can't thank you enough. I'm so grateful that we're friends and that, you guys come up here and just do. And, oh, by the way, don't forget to join or be here next Sunday. We're dropping a video. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet because I don't want to let it out of the bag, but Coop, it's coming. And then it's going to be a really good one. And we did a whole production on it. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. It's excellent. It's who I'm talking about, but don't say it. Don't say it.
Did that turn out okay?
Oh yeah, it came out great. In fact, you're actually going to stand alone. We're going to make you stand alone. It was that good. Yeah, it was
I was
that
saying
good.
it was way too long. Way too long.
No, I kept it. It's perfect. And but it's a very fascinating case. And Coop even worked on it when he was at the BAU. And you're going to know who it is when you see it next week. That said, thank you for becoming a member. If you've become a member tonight, thank you so much. If you can't, that's okay. Just be here. Be here. Hit that subscribe button. Pass it over to your friends, and be good to each other. This is the only time we get to be together, and in the human existence. And there's enough problems out there. This is our opportunity to be kind and considerate to each other. So let's do that. So let's bring Dylan in from the back room. Here's my back room. D-Man, what do you got for us?
Make sure you like and subscribe, everyone, and I hope you have a very good night.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze